What's up guys, and welcome back to Ben's Big Drive. Now I'm really excited about this video because I think that this might be one of my most helpful videos yet. Because this off season, I've spent over 2 hours a day working on my own form, and I'm trying a new method of breaking it down that has been incredibly helpful. And I want to give you all the tools to be able to do it yourselves so that you can break out of the dreaded plateau in your game or in your distance and get better as quickly as possible and come back next season a new player. Now, without further ado, let's get into how to break down your form. Bing, bong, bing, bong, bing, 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 bong. So step one in breaking down your own form is not a novel concept. You need to video yourself. And I'll be brief with this, but I truly believe that if you want to make changes in your form and you don't take at least one video of yourself during a fieldwork session, you've effectively wasted your time. I have hundreds of videos of myself doing form work because if I'm ever out in the field doing work, I'm taking a video. I'll be in like the middle of a round and just pull my phone out and stuff it in between some discs to get a video of my throw. Because if you can't see it, you can't fix it. You gotta freaking video yourself, step one. Quickly moving on to step two, not a novel concept once again. You need to put it side by side with a pro. Again, I'll be brief because this isn't the heart of the video, but especially when you're looking at your own form, it looks so natural when you watch it back because, well, you're the one doing it. You need to have a pro next to you because you need to have a reference of how to do it right at every single point in your throw. Even if you just have a smartphone, I'll link some free video editing apps in the description, and you don't have to be a professional video editor to do this, but it is essential to have that side by side. So download one of those apps and then screen record a video of a pro throwing at the same angle. And by the way, the best footage of pros throwing in slow motion, Overthrow Disc Golf did a huge favor for the disc golf community, and slow-mo recorded Drew Gibson and Simon Lizotte from every single angle. That is the best footage out there. I'll link that in a card up here and in the description, so go check that out. That's where you need to get your slow-mo footage. Now, here's where the good stuff starts, and this is where you can start making rapid improvements in your game. So first, how do you choose what video you've taken of yourself throwing to put side by side with the pro's footage? So when you go to put the footage side by side with the pro, it's so tempting, and I've done this so many times, to put your best shot of the day and then go from there. But if you make a mistake 39 times out of 40, and then the one time that you get it right, you end up using that footage to review your form, you've just eliminated the chance to fix a problem that happens 98% of the time in your throws. So here's how I make that decision. I go out, get all nice and warmed up, and then I get a bunch of shots in, all of them on camera. When I get back in, I pick 3 shots to break down: a good, a bad, and an ugly. Now the good shot is that one shot out of 40 that just went awesome and you ripped it and you felt awesome about it. And the bad shot is the other normal 38 out of 40. And the ugly is the one out of those 40s that is so bad you hope no one ever sees it.
Oh God. What the freak, Richard?
Now, how do you know if a shot is good, bad, or ugly if you only see the form and you don't see the actual disc? So when I'm taping myself, I usually do it from like the parallel side view so you can't see the disc fly. So what I do is after my shot, I'll do one of 3 things. I'll do thumbs up, thumbs down, or nothing at all. So if I give a thumbs up, I know it's a good shot. A thumbs down, I know it's an ugly shot. And if I do nothing, that's just a normal, typical shot. Now, sometimes I'll even show the camera the flight of the disc. Like for instance, if I feel like it was a great rip, but it was just turned over, I'll turn around and give a thumbs up, but then I'll do the turned over kind of signal thing. You know, it's not rocket science. But this is absolutely essential because the whole thing that we're doing here is we're trying to figure out what our body does differently and how it affects the disc. And how would you possibly know that if you just have 1,000 videos of yourself throwing and you don't know how the shot went? So once you've got your good, your bad, and your ugly shots, you can leave the field and start doing the real work of breaking down your form. So moving on to step 3, you're back inside. You've got your good, your bad, and your ugly footage in 3 different videos set up side by side with a pro. And you've got it timed together to where both of you release the disc at the same time. Now, I really don't take it for granted that everyone knows how to put 2 pieces of footage side by side. So if you don't, Ask someone who can help you out, or let me know in the comments if you want me to do some sort of video tutorial on some sort of free app to show you how you can do this yourself. So now that you're in front of your footage, stop. Stop on your right foot, don't forget it. That's a SpongeBob reference. It's not disc golf advice. It is good disc golf advice actually. But at this point, you need to stop and get a paper and pencil. I've got my little notebook. It's even better if you can keep it in a notebook, because if you don't write this stuff down that you're learning and date it, that's the same as not videoing yourself practicing. You've completely lost all of your progress. So again, our goal here is to progress and get better. And if we don't know where we're coming from, we just can't do it. You just can't. So step 3 is to, on that piece of paper in that notebook, I want you to write down everything that you see that looks differently from the pro you're comparing yourself to. But I want you to do this in a very specific way, not willy-nilly. I want you to do this from the ground up, from your feet to your head. From the ground up is critical, and I'll show you why later, but let me show you my process of doing this with an example of my own form, and I'll give you kind of like a cheat sheet or a checklist of things to look for, and I'll even show you what my notebook looks like after I go through and analyze my own form. Okay, we're trying a new angle here. It's called Bend in the Notebook. I'm gonna show you exactly what this looks like and exactly how I do it. And again, I'm going fast here, but the point of this video isn't to break my form down. It's to show you the process of breaking your own form down. So again, we're doing it from the ground up. This is how I do it. Feet, weight, hips, core, shoulders, left arm, and then right arm, because that's the formula for a good throw. If all those things are good, your right arm will be going well as well. And so if you need a little acronym to remember it, I like to remember Fwhkushler. It's simple. It's wombology, the study of wombo. It's first grade SpongeBob. Okay, so I'm gonna play this through and just list a couple of differences starting from the ground up that I see between my form and Drew's form. And I'm working from a standstill here, obviously, to make sure that all of my form is good before I incorporate a walk-up. So let's just play this through. Boom. So I've gone through this a lot, and I'm just gonna already go ahead and say that the first thing I notice is that his feet are a lot wider than mine, so I'm gonna write that down. Okay, so I've started with the feet and I've got my first difference written down. And remember, I've dated and labeled this so I know exactly where to come back to if I wanna come back to this in the future. So moving on, when we get to here, his weight is way more over the center of his body than mine. Mine is already drifting out over this right hip, especially look right here. You can tell that his weight is right in between his feet and mine is all the way over my front foot. So I'm gonna write that down. Okay, so we've got that written down, and notice here how I'm saying very specific details like weight over center in the power pocket, weight over right hip in the power pocket. The more detailed you get with this, the more helpful it'll be. And so moving on, the last difference that I see, and I don't even have to go very far to get 3 differences, but his right hip and leg is much straighter than mine. You can see how right here when he's getting into the power pocket, his is almost completely straight. There's still a little bend, and mine is if I'm sitting in a bar stool or something. So that is a huge difference, and it has to do with the hips. So we're gonna go ahead and write that down. Okay, so we didn't even get into the whole power pocket / pull through part of the throw, but we've got 3 good differences down, and we're ready to move on to step 4. So now we're at step 4, and this is absolutely the most essential part of this video. If you learn nothing else, make sure you learn this. So you've gone through, you've watched the footage 100 times, and you have an extensive list of things that are different that starts from the ground up. Remember, Fwhkushler, and now you're ready to go out and change those things, right? Wrong. This final step is the thing that I've skipped for so many years, and I feel like a lot of people skip, and it caused a huge plateau in my progress as a player. And now that I've started incorporating it, it has taken my field work to the absolute next level and my game to the next level, and it is so critical for your growth as a player. The last step is not to create a list of changes you need to make to look more like Drew Gibson or Paul Macbeth. The critical last step is to create a list of questions based on these 3 principles. Write these down. Why does this specific aspect of my form look different? Get really specific with it. How does this difference allow that pro to throw the disc better than I do? And number 3, is this difference a quick fix, or is it a symptom of something else in my form? Now I'm gonna show you what that looks like going back to the same form analysis that we used earlier. Okay, so now that we've got a good list of differences, let's pick one that doesn't seem like an easy fix, because fixing something big might clear up some of these other issues. So I'm gonna pick the difference about where our weight is here, because that one is one that doesn't have an obvious answer. So now let's run it through the 3 principles. Principle number 1, why does this specific aspect of my form look different than Drew's? Well, one possible answer is that we just have different throwing styles, and maybe that's just personal preference. The way that I would test that theory is I would go through and I would watch other pros and watch their form and see if they do the same thing I do or the same thing that Drew does. And lo and behold, they do the same thing Drew does. So the answer to the principle number 1 is definitely that I'm doing something wrong. So moving on to principle number 2, how does this difference allow that pro to throw the disc better than I do? Well, let's think about it. So here, his leg is straight, which is stopping his momentum from leaking forward, and all of that forward momentum he's created is whipping into the disc. Now here on the left, my momentum is leaking out over that front foot, and that's all that momentum that's in my body that's not being transferred into the disc. So that's allowing Drew to whip that disc out faster. So there's our answer to principle number 2. Moving on to the third and last principle, is this difference a quick fix, or is this a symptom of something else in my form? So here's where, instead of guessing randomly what part of our form we could change to fix this issue, we go back to our list of differences and see if we can find the answer there. So the first difference we have here is that Drew's feet are much wider than mine when he plants. So let's think about this. If I made my feet wider, my leg would automatically be straighter because it would be more stretched out from my body. And also my weight would have a longer way to travel across my legs to get to that side. So maybe that's our answer. So that's when we go ahead and write this down. So from going to this list of differences, I now have the question, is making his feet wider allowing him to keep his weight over his center? So now let's go through and see if there are any other differences that lead us to more questions. So the second difference here is that his right hip and leg are much straighter in the power pocket than mine are. My right leg is way more bent than his. So let's think about it. If my right hip were straighter, basically that would mean I'm standing up straighter, and my weight would be more over my chest and toes. So this begs the question, does standing up straighter allow you to brace better and keep your weight over your center? And so you would continue this process, going through your differences, coming up with questions until you get tired of it, or until you have one thing that really jumps out at you and you're ready to dive into it. So these questions that we've generated are so incredibly valuable to you as a player, because now instead of Paul's reach out is wide, mine should be wide, you have, why is Paul's reach back wider than mine? Why might having your arm wider help you throw it better? Is there something he's doing with his walk up or his body positioning that is making that arm go wider? Is that a conscious decision, or is that a result of something that he's doing with his lower body? And where do you go from there? Well, I'm just so glad you asked. From there, you go watch videos on the reach back. You watch videos on if Paul is even reaching back at all, or videos on how to set up your body to where your reach back is where it's supposed to be. And you start finding answers to that question in the context of your own throw. So instead of blindly soaking in form recommendations from everywhere on the internet, you're intentionally searching for the answers you need to get better. You start learning why your form looks different than the pros and what you need to do to get the same result, not how it needs to look. Think about it this way. The difference between mimicking pros and just trying to get your form to look how theirs looks, and actually understanding why they do what they do and what you need to do to get to that point, is the difference between memorizing every single multiplication table from 1 to 1,000, or just learning how to use a calculator. Researching these questions that you develop yourself lead you to conclusions like, Drew Gibson's right leg is straighter than mine because when he throws, he's controlling his weight by bracing. So the next day, you go out to the field, you focus on controlling your weight, and you video yourself, and you come back and you switch out the old footage, and what is this? Your leg is straight like Drew's. Even though you didn't focus on keeping your leg straight just to look like Drew Gibson, you focused on controlling your weight. Mind-boggling. Now that's an ideal scenario. The most likely scenario is that you'll go out to the field, you'll focus on controlling your weight, and you'll find out that you just can't make it happen. And so then all is lost and you must give all of your disc away to play it against sports and take up chess. Now you could do that, or you could start this process over. Your new questions are, why can't I control my weight like Drew? Is it because I'm moving too fast in my run up and my momentum is carrying me over my right foot? Is it because my front foot isn't turned back enough to allow my hips the flexibility to brace correctly? And you boil it down and you try it and you experiment again and again, and maybe you come to an answer. Or maybe you can't find out what's wrong and you're still stumped. That's when you ask for help from someone. It's much better to come to someone for help after you've tried and studied your own form and identified problems and specific questions yourself. That, my friends, is how you get to the bottom of your form issues. And if you're intentional with how you document your progress and you ask questions, you'll avoid the frustration and hopelessness that comes with not getting any better. So if you found this at all helpful, and I hope that you did, please consider subscribing to help me out to put out more content like this and to propel me on my journey to becoming a pro disc golfer and a touring pro at that. And with that, follow along for more of Ben's Big Drive. This is a very serious video, so I'm gonna end it like a professional. Maybe I'm gonna do like Sports Center, like pretend to chat somebody up and be writing notes. So the camera's zooming out.